I'm on my way to the airport right now, and I'm flying with an airline that's been the punchline of a million jokes.
Flying Spirit Airlines is one step above shipping yourself somewhere in a box.
This 2-year-old climbs onto the baggage belt and disappears.
I bet the kid just found out that his parents were flying Spirit, and he was like, oh, hell no.
That's right, we're talking about Spirit, one of America's original ultra-low-cost carriers. And it's not just jokes. The Department of Transportation tracks customer complaints about airlines. Back in 2013, Spirit received 3 times the industry average. So with all this in mind, I didn't usually fly with them. I like my flights a little more, shall we say, well-reviewed. But in April 2025, WalletHub, a site that ranks everything from credit cards to cities, ranked U.S. airlines across 14 different metrics and named Spirit the #1 airline in America. So how'd the most hated airline in America end up at the top of these ratings? So let's get on a plane and find out. This is an email from an angry customer in 2007 to Spirit Airlines after a delayed flight ruined their trip. But it wasn't the email that stirred up drama, it was the response. Someone forwards the message to Spirit's then CEO, Ben Baldanza. He opens his BlackBerry to respond, but makes a critical error. His reply all includes the customer. We owe him nothing as far as I'm concerned. Let him tell the world how bad we are. He's never flown us before anyway, and we'll be back when we save him a penny. That statement holds the DNA of Spirit's entire attitude at the time. See this quote from a Bloomberg article 7 years later. Offering our low fares requires doing some things that some people complain about. Okay, but what were some of those things? Before we get into them, I need to introduce you to my hate meter. It's simple, petty, and brutally honest. This little gauge is how we'll track just how much burning hatred this company racks up. When that little needle hits red, you know it's bad. Let's start with fees. Before 2010, flying with a carry-on at no extra charge was the standard operating procedure across the major US airlines. But then came Spirit. In 2010, it became the first US airline to charge passengers a fee to bring a carry-on bag. It was a bold and controversial turning point, not only for Spirit, but for the industry. Soon, other airlines were reevaluating their own fee structures. And just like that, the era of a la carte flying had officially taken off. You paid to check a bag, you paid to print your boarding pass, you paid for water, you paid to pick your seat, you paid to change your flight if you missed it. According to the New York Times, by 2013, Spirit had 70 different types of fees. And it wasn't just to nickel and dime passengers. There was a bigger strategy at play. Advertise the cheapest fare possible, then charge for everything else. It allowed Spirit to keep their prices low on paper, but squeeze the real money from the extras. Just 3 years after the carry-on bag kerfuffle, 38.5% of its revenue came from ancillary fees, not fares. And the fees were just the beginning. Because Spirit didn't just unbundle the experience, it rethought every inch of it. The space between these two chairs is 32 inches, or 81 centimeters for the non-Americans in the comments. Yeah, I see you down there. That's around the airline industry standard for seat pitch, or the distance between any point on a seat and the same point on the seat behind it and in front of it. It's not exactly equivalent to legroom, but it gives an idea of what you can expect. Why 32 inches? Because that's the amount of room a human needs to sit without hating their life. I kid, kinda. It's just enough space for airlines to keep people relatively comfortable without losing too many seats. Yeah, you could give people more space, but more space means fewer seats. Fewer seats means less money. So airlines aim for a sweet spot. Just enough room to stay profitable without making people feel like sardines. Because no one would actually trade comfort just to squeeze out a few extra bucks. Right?
This is an Airbus A319. We outfit it with 145 seats, which is the most the FAA will let us put on this airplane.
So when other airlines operate this, how many seats do they put in?
Usually around 125 or 126.
To accommodate more passengers, Spirit reduced the space to just 28 inches and no recline.
If you're measuring the physical distance between you and the seat in front of you, our seats are tighter than the other guy. But customers care about price, and we allow customers to travel for a lower price than they can otherwise travel.
So yeah, Spirit was squeezing passengers in the name of providing low fares, but that wasn't the only thing getting squeezed here. Because behind every packed cabin was an operation pretty much running on fumes. Let me explain. Each of these paper clips represents a spare aircraft. These planes are on standby to replace broken or delayed planes. For example, in 2012, US Airways averaged 13 of them. For comparison, Spirit had, let me see, take away the 8, yeah, that's 0. Meaning if one thing went wrong, the whole day could unravel. And it did. In 2010, pilots went on strike after years of stalled contract negotiations. Spirit didn't just delay flights, they canceled everything for days. No backups, no partner carriers, just thousands stranded. This wasn't premium service or even budget service. This was survival mode service. And while every year wasn't as bad as the 2010 pilot strike for Spirit, their standard operating procedure still wasn't great. The Department of Transportation releases monthly reports on how each airline did, and for Spirit, the evidence was pretty damning. In April 2015, Spirit Airlines had an on-time arrival rate of just 74.7% across all US airports, meaning over a quarter of its flights were delayed. Late is defined here as arriving more than 15 minutes after the scheduled time. At some airports, like LAX and DFW, delays were even more common. Around 3% of flights were canceled outright, the highest rate of any US carrier that month. Now, buried in the hateful comments of a YouTube video I was watching for research for this video, I found something that stood out. One person wrote, "I mean really, what are you expecting from a $20 flight?" And that was the Spirit mindset. The same year as the strike, Baldanza basically went full Maximus Decimus Meridius, except, you know, not in a heroic way. Essentially asking, "Is this not why you are here?" Reminding everyone they signed up for McDonald's, not a steakhouse. The fallout wasn't just visible at the gates, it showed up in the data. This is the graph of DOT airline complaints I showed you earlier. Look at that dark green line. That is Spirit Airlines. Between 2009 and 2013, Spirit averaged around 8 complaints per 100,000 passengers. That was more than 3 to 4 times the industry average. Consequently, from January to October 2015, Spirit stock dropped 50%. The stock recovered slightly by the end of the year. In 2016, Baldanza stepped down, citing it as an orderly succession plan. Spirit wasn't just disliked, it was hated. If you wanted to build the worst flying experience possible, you'd copy this era of Spirit Airlines. So, how did they even begin to fix it? It's the kind of smart move companies make, not just fixing the product, but rethinking the entire customer journey. If you're running a company and reworking how your teams attract, sell, or support customers, this guide from HubSpot and Calendly is a great place to start. It's built for the messy middle, those critical transition points where teams hand off a customer and things often fall apart. It'll help you spot the weak links, get tips on how to figure out what customers and employees experience, and fix it fast with checklists that'll help you remember simple things that make a big difference, like adding clear buttons so customers know what's new and who to talk to. Once you see what's clearly broken, the fix becomes obvious, just like it did for Spirit. In 2016, Spirit hit the reset button. It brought in a new CEO, Bob Fornaro, a member of Spirit's board of directors since 2014, who had a simple but powerful idea that was the exact opposite of his predecessors. You don't have to choose between cheap and quality. You can do both. And Spirit needed both. The first fix to stop the hate? Time. Spirit used to schedule flights back to back, like land one flight at 3 p.m. and then take off again at 3:30 p.m. In 2016, it changed that. It added more time between flights and hired more crew to more smoothly transition between flights, and gave itself room to recover if anything went wrong. Like saying, let's land at 3 p.m., but not take off again until 4 p.m. But slowing down was just one step, because next, Spirit made a move that changed the stakes for some employees. Through this offer letter, we can see exec bonuses are tied to safety and on-time performance, meaning that being late didn't just annoy passengers anymore, it could also impact the executives' wallets. But these changes came at a cost. Between Q4 2015 and Q4 2016, Spirit's profits took a hit. Earnings per share dropped to around 25% and operating margins fell around 16.2%, down from 22.8% the year before. Fornaro didn't sugarcoat it. He told investors that Spirit's outsized margins from the pre-2015 era were unlikely to return. Instead, Spirit set a new long-term goal: operate with mid-teens or higher operating margins, a hint that short-term dips were part of a much bigger strategy. While Spirit had already started laying the groundwork for a turnaround, the company announced in December 2017, more than a year in advance, that CEO Bob Fornaro would step down in January 2019 and be replaced by then CFO Ted Christie. I think I know what you're thinking right now because I was thinking the same exact thing. Spirit must not have really been happy with what Bob was doing, but they were. In this official press release from the company, Spirit's own leadership points to sweeping changes under his watch. Shifts, they say, reshaped the company's operations and customer experience. As far as I can see, this was a company that was pretty happy with the track that it was on and hoped for another smooth succession to maintain momentum. However, turbulence disrupted hopes of a smooth flight because while the company was undergoing a period of rebuilding, the pandemic hit. Passenger demand collapsed by 90%, wiping out revenue. Spirit went from on track to posting a GAAP net loss of $27.8 million in Q1 2020. Christie called it an unprecedented health crisis, but told investors Spirit's low-cost model and quick cuts would get them through. Spirit moved aggressively to conserve cash and resize operations during the pandemic's peak. It slashed capacity by 75% in April 2020 and by about 95% in May and June 2020 to match the collapse in demand. It parked planes, froze hiring, and negotiated unpaid leave programs to avoid layoffs. Then came the bailout. Spirit took $335 million in payroll support from the CARES Act, used to keep workers on payroll. They called it essential for keeping fares low and flights running. And even in the chaos, Spirit kept upgrading. In 2019, Spirit ordered 100 brand new Airbus jets, including the larger A321neo. According to Reuters, while airlines typically get discounts of at least 50%, the exact amount Spirit paid hasn't been disclosed. The deal could have been worth between 11 and 12 billion at list prices. That move gave the company one of the youngest fleets in the country. In 2016, their planes averaged 6.1 years old, already the youngest in the US. According to Che Aviation, by 2025, that number dropped even further to 5.93 years. The results were undeniable. Spirit went from dead last in on-time arrivals to first, with 89% of flights landing when they were supposed to. In early 2016, Spirit was getting about 17 more complaints per 100,000 passengers than the average airline. By the end of the year, that gap had shrunk to just 3. And pilots who'd once gone on strike signed a new deal with a 43% pay bump. The company had successfully rebuilt its foundation. Now, it turned its focus to another major passenger gripe: comfort. Enter the cabin. Through a redesigned interior, Spirit rolled out the first major seat upgrade in its history. Curved seatbacks gave passengers 2 extra inches of knee space without changing the pitch. Middle seats got wider, tray tables got bigger, and the seats, they could finally recline. Kind of. They came pre-reclined. But new seats, that doesn't sound cheap. How'd Spirit pull it off without blowing the budget? The answer lies in the seats themselves. These new seats are made from a lightweight composite frame and padded with ultra-light foam. It's 2.6 pounds lighter than the old ones, meaning more comfort without adding weight, helping maintain fuel efficiency without breaking the bank. But the comfort didn't stop at the seats. Spirit had high-speed Wi-Fi fleet-wide by 2022, becoming the first ultra-low-cost carrier to do so. It added 24/7 WhatsApp support and overhauled the free Spirit loyalty program. No more expiring points, new status tiers, and real rewards. By 2024, the onboard flight experience had drastically improved. Now, it was time to fix how people paid for them. Spirit introduced a new 4-tier bundled system that made it easier to pay for what you actually want. CEO Ted Christie put it simply: we listen to our guests and are excited to deliver what they want. Choices for an elevated experience that are still affordable. By 2025, Spirit wasn't just better, it was at the top of its class. Flights were on time, seats were more comfortable than they'd been, customer support existed and worked, and passengers finally had choices, all without losing the one thing Spirit was known for: low fares. It rebuilt everything from the runway up. WalletHub named it the best overall, most affordable, and safest airline in America, a claim bolstered in February 2025 when the company won the FAA's Diamond Award for the 7th year straight, recognizing top-tier safety training for its maintenance crews. The airline everyone mocked became the one everyone else had to catch. But let's not get carried away here. This is more of like Rocky landing a punch than him actually winning the fight. For Spirit, the takeoff was very bumpy, and it still hasn't quite stuck the landing.
Thank you, Spirit Airlines, for filing for bankruptcy. And making everyone ask, wait, you had money before?
Just over 5 months before the awards, in November 2024, a series of failed mergers, rising fuel costs, and lingering pandemic-era debt led the airline to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. There are still canceled flights, and although it has definitely improved, on the same list that ranked it #1 overall, the airline ranked as one of the least comfortable in the industry. It turns out that while slightly better seats were definitely an improvement, Spirit still couldn't compete with amenities like good entertainment options, free Wi-Fi, and complimentary snacks, which were becoming or were already standard on many other airlines. In April 2025, Ted Christie stepped down as CEO. At the same time, a new pivot was emerging. After the bankruptcy filing, Spirit showed interest in targeting more affluent customers to charge higher rates, potentially taking Spirit from just an ultra-low-cost carrier to a premium brand with premium pricing. It's a complete 180 from their original strategy, and it's still too early to tell if it'll set off the hate meter. The question now is, if Spirit isn't setting it off, who is? While Spirit climbed, Frontier stayed grounded. Instead of learning from Spirit's mistakes, it doubled down, cutting corners, not complaints. By 2023, Frontier hit 32.99 complaints per 100,000 passengers. For comparison, Spirit's peak infamy in 2015 was 8. Now it's 2025 and the roles have flipped. Spirit fixed its reputation, and Frontier is building one, but for all the wrong reasons.
Tonight, the terrifying moments before this Frontier Airlines jet finally touched down in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
So now the question is, will Frontier evolve? Or is this just what happens to low-cost airlines that never change? Guess we'll just have to wait and find out. If you want to see a story about a company that went from best to struggling, check out my video on how Southwest made a pivot that changed everything. Remember to click the link in the description, and don't forget to subscribe to the Hustle YouTube channel for more stories just like this.